Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to the Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Today, our guest is David. David, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So, David, let us know where you live and what you do.
I live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, although I'm currently sitting in Kansas City, Missouri, so a little bit different weather today. My company is an executive advisory firm, and we help business executives understand how to leverage emerging technologies and processes for improved profit and growth and business relevance while understanding how to identify and control the risks associated.
Awesome. So, let us know what are your major responsibilities in the company as a founder?
Well, they are many. The entrepreneurial world is wearing many hats at all times. I would say that the three most important aspects of what I do right now are driving business growth, relationship management, keeping our clients happy and understanding what their needs and opportunities are, and then being a subject matter expert. And I guess a fourth one is also to make sure that all of our partnerships and colleagues are also very well informed and enabled to be successful.
Awesome. So, from last 8 years in my entrepreneurial journey, I was handling a lot of things. Yes, I was wearing a lot of hats, and I delegated some of the hats to others for sure. But
Sure.
still, I'm wearing a lot of hats. So, do you think it's a good thing, it's a normal thing, or it's a bad thing? Because people idealize like the owner should be the one only who is on the beach and doing some enjoyment all the time. They don't have to do any work. So, what do you think about it?
Very funny. Well, it is funny. That is oftentimes the perception. In fact, I just got off a call where somebody was saying, I'll have to get back to you because our boss is on the golf course right now. But the reality is you always are beholden to somebody. You know, when you're working in a W-2 company, you're working for somebody else. You've got your boss, you've got their boss, etc. But when you're working by yourself or for yourself, or you're the founder of a company, it doesn't really change. It's just that now you're beholden to the market, to your clients, you have to be aware of your competitors, etc., etc. So it does not become easier by any means. In fact, it's the challenge of keeping all the plates spinning that keeps entrepreneurs being entrepreneurial, I think. And as far as wearing all the hats, I think that it's important to do what you said, to be able to delegate and to be able to surround yourself with people who are better than you and smarter than you so that you yourself don't stagnate. And I think that one of the failures of an entrepreneur is to feel that they can do everything better than everybody else. And the reality is there are talents that you have that get you to a very good point. And then you're going to become your own bottleneck for growth. You're going to have to understand, I'm going to use my strengths and I'm going to leverage the strengths of the people around me. And collectively, we're going to be better than the collection of individuals.
I think this is one of the most important thing that you mentioned, that everybody thinks like I can do everything better for my own company. But yeah, sometimes like there's always a time when you become a bottleneck for your own company. So yeah.
Absolutely.
So let us know a little bit about the inspiration while we are talking about the problems in the business. So on the other hand, everybody starts a business with some inspiration, with some biggest why. So what is your why and what was your biggest inspiration?
A couple things. That's a really good question. I always find that the simple questions are the most interesting to discuss. For me, it's a couple different things. I love creative problem solving. So being in an environment where I'm constantly being pushed to think and to expand my knowledge base is something that I really, really enjoy. But secondly, I had a job, most recently a W-2 job, and worked for a Fortune 25 company in what would be considered a pretty high visibility and an important position. And did that for about 3.5 years. and I was included in the first of many layoff waves. The company has since laid off 40,000 people in the last probably 24 months. And so what I realized when you coming back to your question of the why, to have a single source of revenue is to me a very high risk endeavor. If you're working for a company and you've put all your eggs in that company's basket, and the company goes through reduction in force, or the company gets purchased, or whatever the case is, your one source of revenue goes away. So, what I decided when that happened to me a couple years ago was to once again turn to my entrepreneurial side. I had run a consulting company for 13, 15 years earlier in my career. And this time, what I decided to do was to really take that seriously and to spend time and energy filling a pipeline with demand so that I would have multiple sources of revenue and take care of the financial risk that way. But that's just me. It's the combination of creativity and exposure to new problems and clients and their opportunities, while also trying to offset my own financial risk of having a single job.
Makes sense. Completely makes sense. So when you started your business, how you were thinking about it? Like you were looking for the gaps, or you were looking for something that can be the biggest differentiator in the market. So how you started thinking about it?
So that's again a good question. I think what I really did first was looked at what I personally could do as a subject matter expert. You know, it's an entrepreneur looks in the window or looks in the mirror rather and says, okay, I can do X, Y, and Z. What I also realize is that although I've been a technical career person and I've been an executive for the last 15 years, my differentiator is that I have a background in business psychology and communications, and also happen to be a data expert in many ways. So playing up what my differentiator was and realizing, okay, I can provide my technical expertise and my managerial expertise, but what is going to make me different is targeting the business sides of companies instead of the technical side. I've been a chief information officer twice and a chief technology officer once, but the people who I target are the business side, the owners, founders, CEOs, CFOs, COOs, etc. Those people who are really driven by profitability and growth and business relevance. And those are the people that I speak to. Those are the people that my company advises. So it was a moment of reflection and intentional decision to market our company services in that direction.
Makes sense. So your focus is more towards the creative side. So whenever we talk about the creativity, whenever we come up with some creative idea or any creative thing, the very next thing is the change resistance. Give some idea and or maybe you are going to give some process, and the other one is going to say, okay, no, nobody did this. Nobody
Right.
ever implemented this, so probably we will not be able to do this. So how
Right.
you handle this sort of situations?
It's an interesting question. And I could tell you one thing that I learned in the consulting world, probably now 20, 25 years ago, was a term called FUDing. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. FUD. It stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So when you are talking to people and you're talking about a novel approach to solve a problem, a creative approach, or something that they're just not used to, it's pretty common for the people to FUD. They're going to tell you every reason why it can't work. They're going to come up with every reason to try to defend the status quo. Maybe they themselves are change averse. Maybe they are afraid of change or et cetera, et cetera. And so what I've learned is you give people, 15 minutes to tell you every reason why something will fail or every reason why your idea won't work. And then what I usually do is I start to say, okay, I appreciate everything you've now shared with me, but that's what we call the problem frame of reference. And I'm going to ask you to switch to the solution frame of reference. We're going to be making changes. If your leadership of your company didn't feel that change needed to occur, I wouldn't be in the room with you right now. So we have to get to the point where everything you've said to me is valuable. And I usually write everything down on the whiteboard because they are helping us identify the change management aspects that we're going to have to address to get adoption and to get buy-in by these people. I won't lie. I mean, there have been situations where people continue to FUD. They continue and continue and continue. And I've unfortunately had to ask people to be removed from the project because I could tell that they just were not going to buy into the change. But for the company to change, you do have to look at the people. You have to take into account that at the end of the day, you're a collection of individuals. The leadership has to be confident and consistent in their messaging and to, be willing to say, this is why we're changing. A lot of leaders are afraid to give that kind of exposure or vulnerability to their audience, but change management is vital. And I'm glad you brought that up because the failures, it's so easy to find the failures of change when it's somebody says, here's our new process, and they try to shove it onto the organization, or here's our new system, you're going to have to comply and use it. Without understanding, we have to move the people and get them to be confident and compliant with the future mode.
Yeah, obviously, because creativity always come up with something new, and change is
That's
always
right. That's
awesome.
right.
So let's get back to the business side. Every entrepreneur face many challenges every next day. So because every day comes up with a lot of new challenges. So we understand this thing. But I understand you must have faced a lot of challenges. So can you please share one of your biggest challenge that you faced and how you were able to cope up with it?
Sure. And actually, it's one of the case studies that I cite most often. I was working for, again, a Fortune 25 company. And I guess I have this reputation once people start working with me that I like to take on those big, hairy monster problems that other people kind of run away from. This is a company that had spent quite a lot of money. I'll just say in excess of $10 million, probably closer to double that. They were interested in spinning up a multinational data initiative, data science AI initiative. And they addressed I'll say the infrastructure aspect. They got the office up and running. They built out the office overseas. They hired a large number of very expensive resources, data scientists, etc. And I think that to a certain extent, a lot of the people who were involved up to that point in the project were very, very proud of themselves. I mean, because what they did was a pretty big undertaking. The person who approached me said, okay, Dave, we have a big problem here. And the big problem is that we addressed it as though it was a technology problem with a technology solution. And AI is not a technology problem. It is a business problem or a business opportunity that has business solutions and technology enablers. So the issue that this company was facing was that internally, their compliance, regulatory, data privacy, data security, and legal departments all said, okay, you set up this endeavor and you hired all these people, but you're not allowed to touch any of our own data to make any of this work. So they came to me. I worked with the technology leadership to make sure that an architecture was put in place that would support the technical needs and aspects. But more importantly, I worked with all of those other leaders and the heads of compliance, legal, regulatory, etc., and put together a program that withstood any legal or compliance or regulatory inquiry. Obviously, the risks that are inherent in AI, they're immense. And enterprise risk, we're not talking, small stuff. We're saying, the risk that you're dealing with is reputational, strategic, financial, operational, legal. These are massive risk exposures that have to be addressed and they have to be abated. So at the end of the day, I solved that problem. I was the point person that got this company's multinational AI initiative up and running. And that is where I learned that AI business leadership, which is it's probably the tip of the spear that my company handles right now, is helping companies feel confident that they can leverage these data-driven initiatives like AI in a profitable fashion while abating all of the risks necessary so that if they end up on the cover of the New York Times, it's because of profitability as opposed to legalities and other issues. It was more of a people, and it was more of an issue of being able to listen to all of the multiple perspectives and bring everybody to the table and have the conversations necessary so that business, legal, ops, and technology could work together instead of it being a fragmented, segmented approach that was doomed to fail. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it answers the question in a comprehensive manner. So, in terms of growth, when our companies are looking for growth, they set their short-term and long-term goals. So, let's talk about your goals first, then we will jump on it for others. So, what are your short-term goals, like maybe in next 3 to 6 months, or maybe within 1 year?
Well, I think right now, building a pipeline with prospects and clients that know they need to change to be relevant, to grow. I believe we're at a tipping point right now. In fact, if we stay with the AI business leadership aspect, my company has many, many service lines, and these are service lines that have been informed by myself being an executive, as well as my colleagues who have been executives. We kind of know what executives face when they're at that moment of question. I know how I got here, but I don't know how to get the company to where it needs to be. So we are also at that tipping point where I want to be able to say, we know what the opportunities are that our customers are facing. We know what the pains are that they are facing, and to always be able to be managing that in a demand management kind of way. So the sales and business development aspect of my business is going to be ongoing forever. There's no doubt about it. As far as growth mechanisms, we are a company that, up to this point at least, has been 100% based upon referrals and introductions. I believe that the work that we do necessitates a very quick we have to achieve the state of trust and respect mutually with our clients. If I'd say pretty quickly that we're not a consulting firm in the general sense. Everything we do is meant to be to get our clients to a point where they can do the work without us as quickly as possible. We don't want to create anybody's dependence upon us.
Yeah.
So to do that, we have to be seen as trusted advisors, not just vendors or consultants. We strive very quickly to see the problem or the opportunity from the point of view of the client. So they feel, hey, these guys are working with us. They're not working against us, they're working with us. And, in that sense, what we've created with my company is a virtual enterprise where we have partners that speak to a variety of points of view or business lines. And we can help our clients serve their needs by handing off to these partners who have their areas of expertise so that the client gets what they need in a cost-effective and fast manner and, comes to us and saying, hey, you're our trusted advisor. We need to do X, Y, Z. Can you help us? So that's both the near-term and the long-term goal for us.
All right. In fact, you answered my next question as well, partially, but it's okay. I can still ask.
Sorry about that.
So yeah, so whenever a company is setting up their short-term goals, so I wanted to ask, like, what are the main or core things that they have to keep in their mind while setting up the short-term goals?
Okay, that's a good question. And of course, it varies from company to company, sector to sector. But I think that a couple things in particular, if it's a company that is bootstrapping, be very, very, very careful with, be financially conservative. Make sure that every penny you're paying needs to be done in the appropriate way. If it's a small company that is taking investment, once again, make sure that you don't take too little investment. I think that's a problem that I've seen repeatedly in my life and my career is a company that'll say, I'm going to do a small money raise. And then they burn through that money raise very quickly. They don't hit their metrics, and they find that their reputation has been harmed to their investors. So if you're going to take money, take enough to last you for 3 years of operations instead of 9 months. But as far as setting the goals for short term, for near term, it's, be smart about understanding what your differentiator is. What is your true key capability set? Don't be afraid to say no. In fact, that's probably the thing that most startups fail at. They take what I call the high maintenance, low value clients that take a ton of your time. They cannibalize your time. You're not getting paid enough for it. So, be smart about your first 10 clients. Make sure that they are high value and hopefully low maintenance so that you can truly continue to build the business and find that you are not in operational firefighting mode for your clients and thus hamstringing your own growth.
Makes sense. Awesome. So, David, at the end, what would be your biggest piece of advice for the other entrepreneurs and especially the ones who are planning to start their business or maybe they are just dreaming to be their own boss? I know you have already given a lot of advices, but let's go for one more.
Well, I think that the one thing that I've heard and I've seen, I've lived it. I think I lived it back when I started my first consulting company in 2003. One of the big failures of an entrepreneurial firm, if you're in the services, professional services mode like we are, is it is very hard to be in delivery mode and client acquisition growth mode at the same time. It's a failure that people make is they get a client, they get a project, they focus on the project and they're making sure they do a good job there. The project ends, but they have no sales pipeline. And so that it's one of these jobs where you're like, okay, you're in a valley and you're like, now, okay, I have to go find more work. Make sure that you understand, again, that the sales side of your business can never stop. Don't put yourself in a position where all hands on deck is the normal way of working, because that will not last. But if you're going to start out, make sure that you understand that you have to have more than one client. You have to have more than 3 to 5 clients because clients will go dormant. In fact, I can tell you back in 2013, I was running a company and we started the year with, I want to say 12 clients. All of it was a SaaS model. So we had a monthly recurring revenue. Everything was looking really good. The sector that I was selling to, which was the independent brokerage trading company model back in Chicago, in that year, we had clients go bankrupt, we had clients merge with each other, and we had clients be consumed by larger companies. Well, for me, that meant my monthly recurring revenue went from fairly good to almost non-existent in a 12-month span. So you can never stop the growth aspect of your company. So if you're going to start out, make sure you've got a good differentiator, something that stands out in the market, and always be in sales growth mode.
Wow,
So
that's a beautiful advice. In fact, I can relate myself. I spent many years in this state, so I can understand this pain. Awesome.
it's amazing. And in fact, I heard I was told this about 18 months ago that it is the biggest failure of executives who then decide to go independent because executives they will unfortunately linearly sell a client, work the client, and then realize, okay, nobody's handing me work now, right? In a corporate setting, there's always work to be done. But when you do go solo, whether you're going to be a consultant or an advisor or whatever the case is, executives make this error. And you always have to be filling a pipeline. You always have to be nurturing your next 5 to 10 business opportunities.
Awesome. Well, David, it was really nice to have you today, and our conversation was really good. In fact, we spent even more time because there were many important things to discuss. So, and I discussed and cleared my mind for many things. I learned new things today, even. So, this is the main purpose that is fulfilled. And hopefully, people must have learned from this podcast. So, at the end, please let people know how they can reach you. You can share your website or social media handles, whatever you want to.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And on the board behind me, that website is siegeladvisoryservices.com. And you're welcome to send me an email directly at dave@siegeladvisoryservices.com. Again, we're also can be found on LinkedIn, both me individually and the company. There's the website, and I welcome inquiries. As you just said, Qasim, every day I wake up curious. There's more to be learned. The world is constantly changing. I guess my last comment is the what and the why are incredibly important. The how is transient. So if we focus on the problem or opportunity and we focus on why it's relevant to the client, we can come up with ways to address it that hopefully stand the test of time. But it's more important to me to always understand and to make sure they understand with consensus that the opportunity is here. This is why we're looking at it right now, why we're thinking of fixing it or addressing it or pouncing on it right now. And then we can help them understand how to address it.
Awesome, David. That's another great advice.
I'll send you a bill later, Kasim.
All
I
right.
appreciate you having me on very much.
Thank you, David. Have a good day, and we'll stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.